Okay, so what I want to do is there are 45 tokens in this game, and I want to break down every one and kind of tell you some things about them, how often you'll see them, when you'll see them, and give you sort of an idea right off the bat to help you sort of break down this kind of giant pool of colors and tokens that you get. Most of these, as you realize, are either pretty simple, and you'll get used to them as you see them, or they're pretty rare and you don't really need to memorize it. So as a new player, there's obviously learning a lot of information about this game, and I sort of want to push people down the right direction and understand kind of like what these tokens are, and again, when you'll see them, and if you'll even see them if you have the heroes unlocked. So the first thing I want to tell you is use this wiki at your disposal. So what this is this is the wiki.gg wiki. So this is not the first one typically that you'll see when you type in DD2 wiki. That will take you to the fandom one. The fandom one is no longer being updated, partly because fandom as a website and as a company sucks. So the wiki.gg is better. It is in the description. You can come here and click it anytime. If you're going to be playing Darkest Dungeon a lot, it's worth probably bookmarking it. DD2 is not as bad as DD1 as far as having to have the wiki up all the time, but it is nice to understand certain things or to be able to look things up, or just to get a better understanding of kind of like what's going on in the game. If you do not know who I am, I have like 1,600 hours in this game, something along those lines. I have way too many hours in this game. I stream this game every day, twitch.tv/MarinerHawk, also in the description. If you would like to stop by and say like, hey, I watched your token video. Thanks, bud. And I'll be like, you're welcome, dude. Thanks for watching. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is show off these colors right here. It's color-coded, but let me break this down a little bit more. So this first line, plus strength, is a buff. It's considered a positive token. So sometimes you'll see a trinket that maybe says like plus 10 healing received per positive token. All of these, plus stealth, actually counts as a positive token also. These are positive tokens and buffs. And then right here, you just have 3 others, which I'll get into. They're pretty simple. All of these dark blue ones here are debuffs. Debuffs are also considered negative tokens, so same thing. Sometimes you'll see minus 10% damage taken per negative token. That's what these means, is these debuff tokens right here. These light blue, considered special, are at least these first 4 plus these last 3 are hero specific or skill specific, and then combo is something that you'll see throughout the game that I'll get into. Again, stealth is considered a positive token. It gets its own color because it's special. And then orange is all either enemy or hero specific, either abilities or ideas within the character. And I'll get into those when I get into those. Okay, so let's start with these. The first 2 here, block and block plus. So what block does is minus 50% damage from next hit. Block plus is minus 75% damage from the next hit. Pretty simple. That's as simple as it is. A lot of these tokens are opposite. Keep in mind also. So block and block plus are the opposites of vulnerable. So if you have 1 block and somebody gives you a vulnerable, that will offset. And you'll have no tokens whatsoever. So you will see block and block plus all the time. Man-at-Arms, for example, perfect example. Defender. When you defend somebody, he gets 2 block tokens. And when you master it, when you use a mastery point on it, which you'll get throughout the run, he gets 2 block pluses. So you will see those all the time, both on enemies and heroes. Pretty simple. You can stack these up to 3 each. So you can have up to 3 blocks or 3 block pluses. After that, you just don't gain anymore. So you'll see a lot of these tokens have different limits. Block and block plus are 3. So crit is the next token on this list. The next skill is 100% crit and ignores 20% resistance. So don't overthink it. Sometimes people think like, oh, does it add 100 to your crit chance? So if you have 0 crit and then you get this token that makes it 100, but then if you lose 10 from some other source, is it a 90%? No, it's just the next attack or the next skill is a guaranteed crit if it can use that, which most skills can. So ignores 20% resistance. So what that means is, let's look at the Plague Doctor. So the Plague Doctor you see here on Noxious Blast, it's plus 30% blight resistant piercing when a target is comboed, is what that means. So it's the same sort of idea. So if you were to Noxious Blast with a crit, what that means is normally it will do 4 blight over 3 turns. With dots on a crit, whether it be a natural crit or a token crit, it, instead of 4 blight over 3 turns, it'll now be 4 blight over 5 turns. So it adds 2 turns to the duration, is what it does. And it maxes out the damage plus 50%. So let's look at Incision, for example. So Incision is 3 to 6. The highest is 6. So it's 50% more than that. So an Incision crit, just based off of this with no trinkets, no quirks or anything, it would do 9 damage, and then it would do a 3 bleed over 5 turns. Now, it also, a crit, again, either natural or through a token, will go through 20% of their X resist. So if it's Incision, for example, it will pierce 20% of their bleed resist. If it is, this also works for debuff abilities. So Blinding Gas, for example, with a blind, it will, if they have a 40% debuff resist and you crit on Blinding Gas, it will mean that they have a 20% debuff resist. So it's a less chance to resist. So overall crits in this game, whether it be through a token or natural, if it's on a dot, it makes it from 3 turns to 5 turns. If it is on a debuff, it pierces 20% of their debuff resist. And if it is on an ability that has damage, it will do 150% of the max damage. So we'll do 50% above what the max damage is, and go through, like Incision, for example, will do 9 damage, go through 20% piercing, and make the bleed 3 over 5 turns instead of 3 over 3 turns. So you can imagine why crits are pretty good in this game. You can only stack 2 of these. You cannot stack 3. So block and block plus, you can stack 3 at a time. Crit is only through 2. Dodge and dodge plus, same idea as block and block plus. It's the same percentages, 50 and 75. Just the reason is, or the difference is 50% chance to dodge the next attack, or 75% chance to dodge the next attack. Keep in mind, this stacks with blind. So if a blind target is attacking one of your heroes that has a dodge, it cuts it in half. So it's a 25%, and a blind is a 50% chance to miss the attack. So that's really nice. Through a dodge plus, it is a 12.5% chance, which is the lowest that you can get in this game. Same thing, you will see dodge and dodge pluses all the time. You can have up to 3 of these, same as block and block plus. You can use combat items to pierce one of these. So there's a chance if you use a combat item to throw, a weapon at them or whatever, they can dodge it. So you can either use that to get rid of the dodge so that you can hit with a bigger ability, or it'll just be dodged and you'll be sad. So guarded, protected by an ally unit. So what this means is, let's go back to Defender. So if we go back to Defender with the Man-at-Arms, the target gets 2 of those guarded tokens. So what that means is the Man-at-Arms guards them, similar to DD1. So if the Man-at-Arms goes to hit, or if the enemy goes to hit the guarded Plague Doctor in the back, it's going to hit the Man-at-Arms instead. You can stack up to 3 of these on one target. You cannot have one target be guarded by 2 different people. Say the Man-at-Arms guards the 2 position, and then somebody else in the 3 position guards the 4. You can do that, but you cannot have both the 1 position and the 3 position guard the person that's in the 2. It will just override. If you try to do that, it will just override the guard. So if you have the Man-at-Arms guarding the 2 position, and then whoever in the 3 rank you want to guard 2 instead, it will overwrite the Man-at-Arms guarded. He will keep the block tokens specifically on Defender that he gets when he does it, but it gets rid of the guarded targets. So next up we have Riposte, counterattacks the next damaging attack. Keep in mind that is damaging attack, so what that means is something like how I mentioned with Blinding Gas, right? Blinding Gas does not do damage, so this would not be riposted, but something like Noxious Blast or Incision would. Both enemies and heroes can have riposte, and you can have up to 3. The next up after that is a speed token. So what a speed token is, acts faster next round. What it means is this person, assuming nobody else on either team has a speed token, this person is guaranteed to go first at the beginning of the next round. One thing that I would want to explain is, let's say you have 4 heroes here. A little bit of terminology. Each one of these heroes has a turn, but the overall arching is the round. So within one round, you will have 4 enemies, typically, or 4 heroes that will each have a turn. And then once every enemy and hero has had their turn, that means it's on to the next round, so it'd be round 2. So what that means is on round 2, whoever has the speed token is guaranteed to go first. The only exception would be is if 2 people, whether it be enemies or heroes, have a speed token, then I believe it's just a coin flip between the 2, I believe. I believe that's what it is. A speed token is the opposite of a Daze token. So a Daze token, his next action would be delayed to the next round. So if somebody has a speed token, if one of your heroes has a speed token and then they daze you, what that means is it'll offset, like how I said with block and vulnerable, and you will just have nothing. Now, the next is a strength token. The next damage deals plus 50% damage. Another thing that you will see all the time. Obviously, very, very good if you can do something that does like 20 damage, then it'll make it up to 30, as opposed to something you have 2 damage, it'll do up to 3, right? So you'll get this through some abilities. Enemies will get this through abilities also, and you can stack up to 2 of these. With the speed token, you can only stack up to 1. So keep that in mind. You can't just board somebody with speed tokens and they'll continue it going. You can only give 1 per round. So to get into these 3 others right here, what this is stress. If you play DD1, the stress can go up to 100. In this game, it goes up to 10 before you have the Resolute check or the Meltdown check. If you have not played Darkest Dungeon at all, essentially there is a, imagine it kind of similar to like a second health bar, where you have to manage your hero's stress also, and then that's what this means. There are abilities that allow you to get rid of stress, and there are abilities that technically you can gain stress. The enemies don't have stress, only your heroes do. Horror is add stress to hero each round. So this is essentially, imagine a dot, the damage over time like you would with like Blight or Bleed, but this is, a horror is that version for stress. Depending on the ability, sometimes you will have a 50% chance. If they put the horror on you in the battle, you can hover over it and it'll tell you. Sometimes it'll be a 50% chance to add 1 stress at the beginning of the hero's turn. Sometimes it'll be a 75% chance. Sometimes it'll be a 100% chance. So keep that in mind. That is something to keep an eye on. You can get rid of horror in the same way that you can get rid of like bleeds or blights, so that's something to keep an eye on. Death armor, so protects against a death blow. So your heroes have death blow resist. So what that means is, let's go at the Hellions, for example. The Hellions is 80, at least when you have all the Altar of Hope unlocked. So what this means is, if she's on 0 health, she has an 80% chance, if she gets hit on 0 health, to survive. Typically, again, once you unlock everything on the Altar of Hope, it's 75. Now, what death armor is death armor is the enemy's version of that, but instead of percentage, it's a flat hit. So if you see somebody that has 1 death armor, what that means is you have to get them to 0, which will take away 1 death armor, and then you have to hit them again. So if they have, 10 health and you hit them for 75, it will only go to 0. Death armor are pretty much saved for bigger enemies, like harder enemies. You will not see death armor all the time, though it does exist. So keep in mind, there are abilities that can execute that also. So what that means is, if we look at the Highwayman, for example, on Wicked Slice, he has an execution 1. So what that means is, if I said, if you have, if the enemy has 10 health and then you do 10 damage to them, or if you, let's say you do 11 damage to them, it will not kill them, but with this execution, it will. So an execution can be nice in certain situations, just to save you a little bit of time and maybe an extra turn from having to take through this death armor. So again, remember, getting them to 0 takes 1 death armor away. So 2 death armor would mean you have to get them to 0, and then you have to hit them once on death's door, and then they will die. Either you hit them again, or it'll kill them with a dot. So let's get into the negative tokens. What a blind is: a 50% chance to miss the next attack. That's simple. Like I said, it matches with, or it's the it stacks with dodge. So if you can have a hero that dodges and also a hero that blinds, that can be really, really good to help your chances of stop getting hit. You can have 2 of these at one time, or the enemy is the same thing. You can have they can only have 2 of them before it stops stacking. Now, Dazes. Next action will be delayed to the end of the round, converts to a stun, which is right there, when stacked. So what this means is, think of it as the opposite of a speed token, which is what it is. A speed token means that on the next round, your hero or enemy is guaranteed to go first, but on a Daze, it means that that person is going to go last. So what that means is, you will see it in the turn order, they will still have their turn. Let's say the Man-at-Arms has it. Even if the Man-at-Arms goes first in the round, it will still give them their turn, quote unquote, but it will just hover over them, highlight the Daze, and then send up to the end of the turn. Now, 2 of these mean a stun. It is not super often that you can get 2 Dazes and turn into a stun, but you are able to do it. So keep in mind that it's confusing because of the colors. Dazes and stuns go through stun resist. So you have down here, you have stun resist, and over here you have debuff resist. So all of these except for, let's say Immobilize, Taunt, Vulnerable, and Weak, and Blind. Those all go through debuff resist, as opposed to Daze and stun. Don't be tricked by the colors. They go through stun resist. So if you have 100% stun resist, but 0 debuff resist, you cannot be dazed or stunned. Keep that in mind. That's one thing to remember. And again, it will not be super often that you can stack Dazes like that. And both would have to be unresisted, because if they're dazed and you try to give them a second daze and they resist it, obviously that doesn't do anything. So keep that in mind. That goes off of stun resist. It is confusing because of the coloring, but it does go off stun resist. Immobilize is cannot move or be moved. You can stack up to 3 of these, and each one lasts for 1 turn. Sometimes you'll have enemies pull you. Let's say you have your Plague Doctor in the 4 rank. They'll pull you to the 2 rank and then immobilize her there. So that means for the next turn, you cannot move her. Chosen target takes 30% damage from Bullseye Barrett's attacks. This is the first one that we see as we go down the list that's very niche. There are a small handful of enemies, 5, 6, 7 maybe, that have what's called a champion. So it is a buffed version of that in particular hero. In the Tangle, there are archers, which I'm sure you'll see, the arbalists. A champion version of that is Bullseye Barrett. You will see, because he will look a little different. Bullseye Barrett, for example, has a mask on. They essentially are just a buffed version. They do more damage, typically have more health, and sometimes we'll have like buffed version of the abilities. You will not see Barrett very often. Champions are pretty rare. The chance of seeing a champion goes up each region that you are in, but still, even then, it's, I think by the time you get to the last region, it's still a pretty low percentage. So you will, just something to keep in mind. You might not see Barrett for, honestly, realistically, like 100 hours or something, but this does count as a debuff. And he gets a free turn. Whoever chooses as his chosen target is a plus 30% damage. There is a combat item that you will unlock later called Holy Water, which removes all negative tokens. That does count with chosen target. And Holy Water also counts on stuns. Despite the fact that it goes through stun resist, it still can be cleared with a combat item that clears a debuff. That clears all debuffs. A little convoluted, but you'll be able to remember it later. A stun is what you think it is, loses next action. There are overall a lot less stuns in this game than there are in DD1. They are usually harder to get. Usually it will be like Pistol Shot, for example. Pistol Shot, when you master it, can get a stun off of a combo. So it's usually something like that. There's not very many abilities where you can just press a button and stun. Usually it's off of a combo, or it's only when you master it, or etc., etc. So stuns are more rare in this game than in the first one. So a taunt is what it sounds like. Enemies are forced to attack this target if able. So if able means if you're Highwayman, if you have the skills that can only hit the 1 and 2 rank, and the enemy in the 4 rank has a taunt, that means you'll still be able to use your normal abilities. So it's not like you have to pass a turn or anything. So that's nice. Taunts are very, very nice as a hero, because it allows you to, if you have a Plague Doctor in the back, it allows you to control the fights a little bit more. Taunts are very, very nice. The only heroes that start with a taunt are Leper, and Leper right here on Withstand, and Hellion on Toe-to-Toe. So it's very nice to be able to basically control the where the enemy's going a little bit. Taunts you can stack up to 3. Stuns, by the way, you can only stack up to 1, similar to the speed token. And we'll get into the next token is a vulnerable. So it's the opposite of a block. So a block is minus 50% damage from next hit. A vulnerable takes 50% damage from the next hit. So as I mentioned earlier, they will offset each other. So if you have somebody with a vulnerable and you give them a block, they will have nothing. Vulnerables can be stacked up to 2, as opposed to blocks and block pluses that can be stacked up to 3. You will see vulnerables all the time. Pretty much everything I mentioned, except for like chosen target, and horror is relatively more rare, and immobilize probably you will see all the time. A weak is the opposite of a strength. Strength is plus 50% damage on the next attack. A weak is minus 50% damage. So both strength and weak you can only stack up to 2. Okay, so I went through these first couple of rows pretty quickly, because they're all more or less pretty self-explanatory. Now we will get into the relatively more niche ones, either the hero-specific or enemy-specific typically, and I'll break down when you'll see each one of these and kind of like how important they are. So, first thing is these 4 right here are all consecrations. So, you have Consecration of Fortitude right here is the defense one, usually that I will saw the defense consecration, and then Consecration of Light, or the offensive one, essentially, is the best way to put it. What this little blue triangle means is you put a mastery point into it. So you will see that these are the same things, but the tokens are different right there. It'll give a guard or a dodge versus a block or a block plus or a dodge plus. So what this means is this is an ability that buffs a rank, not a hero, but a rank. So what that means is, let's say you use Consecration on Fortitude on the 2 rank right here. So let's put it on the 2 rank. At the beginning of the Duelist turn, she gets either a guard, or she gets either a block, sorry, or a dodge. So let's say that she moves. Let's say you now move her into rank 1. The Consecration stays on rank 2. So let's say you move her into rank 1, and then it is the Crusader's turn. The Crusader also will get that dodge or that block. In total, they last 3 rounds. So rounds, again, each individual hero and enemy has a turn. The rounds are the overarching. So it will last 3 rounds. Does not stack with Consecrations. What that means is you cannot put a Consecration of Fortitude and a Consecration of Light both on the same rank and have that person both get the value out of both of the Consecrations. You cannot do that. So again, if you master it, it changes it from a block and a dodge to a block plus and a dodge plus, which are again, take it from a 50%, like with the dodge, to a 75%. So you can see the Vestal, they add the Consecrations into this game, and she's very good with them. She has a path later, I'll tell you, that you extend the Consecrations to 5 rounds instead of 3 rounds, which make it even better. So the Consecration of Light, the offense one, is unmastered. It grants a strength token to whoever happens to be in that rank on their turn start. And the Consecration of Light mastered is a 75% chance to give a strength token and a 25% chance to get a crit token. Again, typically the Consecrations, the Consecration of Light you will unlock later. Typically you get the most value out of them out of shuffle teams, but there are certain situations. Imagine a boss fight, right? A boss fight where let's say you have one of your heroes in particular, you're trying to have tank. To be able to give them a block plus or a dodge plus every turn is pretty crazy, and you just sort of like plant it down. The Consecrations are very, very good, and again, like I said, they're better in shuffle teams, but you can have them in a normal team for sure. You can, through a sequence of events that includes clearing cooldowns, you can have 2 of the same Consecration down, but not on the same rank. So you could, this is very, very rare, but when I said I was going to give you the niche stuff, I said I was going to give you the niche stuff. If you can, if you put the defense Consecration down and then clear her skill cooldowns through a small handful of ways that can happen in this game, you can put that defense Consecration down on like rank 2, but you can't stack them on the same rank. But you could have like defense, offense. Technically, you could if you played it out perfectly with the skill cooldowns. So combo is the least niche one in this special. You will see combos all the time. There are abilities that generate combo. Imagine simply, they're sort of like a mark from the first game. They're similar. So like Tracking Shot, for example. Tracking Shot will combo a target, and then you will have Pistol Shot, for example, will daze off of a combo, or will, if you put a mastery point in a Pistol Shot, it will stun off a combo. So you will see combos all the time. Typically, it is your team. Although the enemies, it's not rare, but it's not common either that enemies will be able to combo you and do something off of that combo. The champions, for example, that I was talking about, kind of like with Bullseye Barret, typically will be the ones that will do things off combo. It'll typically be bosses or like mini bosses that will do things off of the combo. But combos you can do some really, really interesting things with combo. The Hellion, for example, she has on her main ability plus 50% damage when target combo. You'll see, as I showed the Plague Doctor earlier, you'll see piercing a lot based off of combo. So you can only use a combo once. So let's say Plague Doctor used Noxious Blast. That combo is used up and it's now gone. And if I wanted to, say, stun with the Highwayman, I would have to reapply combo in some way. There are abilities that apply combo. Blinding Gas, for example, will do it on the back rank. Some of them have a chance, or some of them are like the Tracking Shot, where it's a guaranteed. Combos cannot be resisted on either side. There's no combo resist. It doesn't count as a debuff or anything like that. So you can at least rely on combos to be able to add and be able to do whatever you want based off of that. Now, Controlled Burn and Controlled Burn Plus. These are specific to one particular skill on the Runaway. The Runaway is the the only new non-DLC hero, I guess, depending on how you count with the Flagellant. This is one of her later abilities that you unlock. So what it is you can sort of consider it like a Consecration. So what it is I will just show you. So show you the description. So what it says right there is target 3 burn and apply on attack the controlled burn token. So what that means is you do an initial burn with controlled burn. So you will do an initial burn with 3, and then what it does is on turn start, it adds an additional 2 burn. It does not proc immediately. It does not do 2 burn immediately. So essentially, it will give them the 2 burn unless it's resisted, and then the next round, it will actually do the damage of the 2 burn. So it sort of like ramps up. Controlled burn will last 3 turns. They are. So keep in mind, one kind of niche thing about this is there are trinkets that will add, let's say, her burn dealt, right? So let's say +2 burn dealt. That only counts on the initial put down, the initial use of the ability. So the initial use of the ability, that initial 3 right there that you'll see target 3, it only counts on that. It does not count on controlled burns later. So while it's still nice to get like +2 burn dealt and turn that 3 into a 5, it will not continue to ramp up. The combo token itself is not affected. Now, if you master it, it adds 1 to that burn, so it gives a 4 burn, and apply on attack. This controlled burn mastery, essentially. The only difference is it adds 1 extra burn, but it does add 1 extra burn every turn, so it ramps up pretty quickly. Controlled burn is a really, really good ability, as you can imagine during bosses, especially, where you can just plan it down and just torch, you know, or any boss or whatever that you're doing. And controlled burn's a really, really good ability. All right, so this next one right here is called Winded. This is Hellion specific. So it's -33% damage and -3 speed per Winded token, persists until end of combat. This is similar to the Winded token of the first game. So you will see, basically, it's a way to balance some of her stronger abilities. So you look at Barbaric Yop, for example. Barbaric Yop being able to weaken the front 2 targets on their team, and it gives her a Winded token. So these can stack up to 3, so she can have -99% damage and -9 speed. Technically, there are without too much spoiling, one ways to get rid of it is Adrenaline Rush, which is the first ability that you unlock. If she's under 33%, you can use it and it clears the Winded. You cannot clear it with any combat items or anything like that, like how you could in the first game. Like, you could use them in the Medicinal Herb. You cannot do it. The only way to get rid of Winded is either through a couple of her abilities that allow her to do it, or by ending combat. So next you have Stealth. Cannot be directly targeted by most enemy skills if other targets are available. You can stack these up to 2. Again, this does count as a positive token for certain trinkets, so keep that in mind, both for the heroes and the enemies. There are a small handful of enemies that have stealth in this game. It is not super common. There is Act 1, I believe, in the altar buff in the cultist fights are kind of like the main time that you're going to see these. Some pig enemies have them. There are some kind of ways, but there are ways to get rid of them, whether it be Highwayman with tracking shot. You'll see you'll see ignores and removes. It ignores, it means you can use it even if it's stealth, and then remove obviously means remove. So stealth is nice. As you can imagine, the Grave Robber has some stealth abilities that you're able to get bonus based on her being stealth, kind of like how you could in the first game. And stealth overall can save you in some good situations. There's some combat items that work with it, some trinkets that work with it, and some innate things within abilities, like especially, like I said, with the Grave Robber that work with stealth. All right, so let's go ahead and finish off with all these unique tokens right here. These bounce back and forth between being pretty rare and being actually decent parts of the hero. So let's get into Barnacles. Inflicts 1 bleed when moving. This can be resisted. So what this is there are enemies in the Shroud. Basically, their gimmick kind of as enemies is they push around a lot. So what's going to happen is there are certain enemies in there which can inflict barnacles on a rank, and then what's going to happen is the other goons are going to push you in and out of that rank. As far as I know, I believe, don't quote me on it, I believe it bleeds people that move out of the rank and that move into the rank. So technically it can do a double bleed like that, I believe. Obviously, bandages. Having bandages in this area, having you know, a battlefield medicine plague doctor fixes it pretty easily. But this can get pretty annoying, especially if you have a comp that's not super flexible. To get pushed around, I mean, the shroud can definitely be a pain in the ass, and the barnacles will definitely be a part of it. Benediction is for one specific enemy in the tangle. Benediction and Corpulent are going to be both similar. Basically, Benediction, he can the one particular bishop can give itself these tokens and then do a more powerful attack with it. It is all the bishops, so you can look it up if you would like to on the wiki, but I don't want to spoil people too much. But essentially, that's what it is. It only matters on that one enemy. Corpulent, I'll just explain right now. It's a similar thing in the feeder or Fodder or Fotor or however you explain it. Basically, what it is some enemies in there can eat their corpses, eat the enemy corpses, and it will allow them all to do like a super ability on the next turn. Again, you can look those up if you would like, but I don't want to spoil too much. Conviction tokens are for the Vestal. So let's look at Judgment, for example. So Judgment, depending on the path that you are running, you get these at different increments. So on Wanderer and Confessor, which is the first path that you get one per turn. So you get one per turn, and then you get to, kind of like how I was talking about with the Benediction, you get to do a slightly more powerful version of the ability. So if Judgment, for example, it will deal 100% damage if you have 2 Conviction tokens. If you have 3 Conviction tokens, it will deal 100% damage and do the 3 burn. So it is not just if you have 3 tokens, it will only do the 3 burn. It will also do the 100% damage also. If you look at Divine Grace, it's the same thing. So if you do a normal heal with no Conviction tokens or with 1 Conviction token, it's 25 heal. And then if you have 2 Conviction tokens, it's a 35. And if you have 3 Conviction tokens, it's a 45. So those are the Conviction tokens right there. It's something to keep an eye on. This also goes alongside the Unchecked Power tokens down here with the Occultist. So I'll just explain this also. Unchecked Power token, similar to the Conviction, is it either buffs certain abilities or allows you to use certain abilities. So specifically with the Unchecked Power token, empowers certain skills, 33% chance per token of a 1 burn at the start of each round. So he can, in theory, kill himself, depending on the token. If he's on 0 health and he burns himself for 1, I've had it happen. If he burns himself for 1 and then you don't heal him by the time he gets to his turn, he can die to this. So something to keep an eye on. The devs have said that it's kind of the idea of it is unchecked power. Like, he's trying to check this power that he gets, lore-wise, but he's still kind of like fumbling with it at the same time. So it's kind of a fun little arc. So if you look at Weird Reconstruction, for example, you'll see it says plus 100% crit heal when 2 unchecked power tokens. Or you will see Abyssal Artillery when it's mastered. A stun. Abyssal Artillery can stun when you have 2 unchecked power tokens, etc., etc. So it's essentially, it's similar. The difference is through the Occultist, you can get an unchecked power token when you Sacrificial Stab off a combo, for example. If you master it, you can get off of combo and then on a Killing Blow also. So you can get 2 unchecked power tokens in 1 turn if you play correctly. So the difference is the Vestal gets it sort of per turn, at least on her first 2 paths, and the Occultist can get it a little easily, I guess. Less time-based instead of like per turn. So don't leave me. This one is not very obvious what it does. So if you do not know already, there are armor and wheels in this game, is what they are. And basically, as you're driving down, there'll be hazards that will take away your armor or your wheels. If you are at 0 wheels and then hit another hazard, for example, like another wheels hazard, you'll have to do a repair fight. So what a repair fight is you have to fight just a random battle, usually either pillager or zombie battle, and one of your heroes randomly selected will have to waste their turn to fix a stagecoach. So Don't Leave Me is alongside that. I believe it's just for the wheel repair fights. Basically what it is you will see this exclamation point under them at the beginning of combat. It'll stick with them through the entirety of combat, and at the beginning of their turn, they get 1 stress. So, wish it was a little more clear that, but that's what it is. And then you'll see the repair pop up also. It means that they lose their turn and they must use it to fix the stagecoach, which doesn't actually mean anything. But after you are done with the repair fight, you will leave, like say if you're in a repair fight because you had no wheels, you will walk away with 1 wheel. So that's the fight, but you get no loot out of it. Aggressive and defensive stance, those are for the Duelist, who is a DLC character. If you haven't heard anything about her, she's a relatively difficult character, relatively intermediate character. Her abilities do different things based on whether she's an aggressive or a defensive stance. So I don't want to get into too much, but I will show you Touche, her first ability. So if she has ways through her abilities, through like preparation here, for example, to get her into a stance. And then from there, if she's an aggressive stance, when she uses Touche, she'll move forward. When she is in defensive stance and she uses Touche, she'll move backward. Flick is another example of that. She will ignore dodges when she's in defensive stance and uses Flick. And she will ignore guards when she... Ignore blocks, sorry, when she is in aggressive stance and uses Flick. So just examples of like that. That is just for the Duelist. And for the Duelist only. So if you do not have the DLC, not important. And if you, as you do play her, that's one thing you have to kind of juggle around, is whether you're in an aggressive or defensive stance. So pain token right here, and then pain with this little blue triangle, which means you master it. This is specifically just with the Flagellant with 1 skill. So with 1 skill in particular, basically it, when he has damage dealt to him through an enemy or through his self damage, which he hits, which if you haven't looked at the Flagellant before, when he uses punish, it'll say self 10% damage. So when he does this, through, let's say you use the ability and it sort of, I guess, marks him to basically say that if he gets hit between that time frame when you use the ability to the end of his next turn, he heals 10% if it's unmastered per pain token. So you can have up to 3 pain tokens, and then if you master it, it's 15% at the end of that. So that's what that means. That's Flagellant only. It is one of the early, it's the second skill that you end up unlocking, but until then, not super important, and it's pretty self-sufficient as it is, or pretty self-explanatory. So Fodder, consumable by other Plague Eaters. This is in the Fodder again earlier that I mentioned. These will be on the goats. They, some of the enemies can farm the goat essentially and use one of these tokens, and it will either heal them or it'll heal the team as a whole. So that's what that means. Sometimes you'll see them with 2 or 3 tokens, and it basically means that they have the opportunity to use that. Order is for the drummer in the Tangle. So basically, the drummer can put this order token on another enemy, and the other enemy can do basically a buffed version of one of their moves. Essentially, is what that is. So you'll only see it with the Tangle. In the Tangle with the drummer, but the drummer will buff different enemies that allow them to do different things. Newborn Mutation. Newborn Mutation is specifically for one enemy in the Shroud. It is for there's a baby basically that spawns, a little baby. So what it is the baby will use a turn, or will use a turn to give itself either a strength token, a block, or a dodge, I believe what it is. And then at the beginning of its next turn, it transforms into an enemy in the Shroud. So it transforms into a general enemy, but it's a buffed version of the general enemy, because it will keep this Newborn Mutation token, and it gets 25% damage, plus 2 speed, and a 33% chance to get guard on hit. So basically, if you want to see one of these babies, it's a little bit of a DPS race until its second turn. And then if you're able to kill it, nothing happens. If you aren't able to kill it, it will turn into one of those common enemies, but a buffed version of this common enemy. Repair fight, again, the repair fight is whether you have 0 wheels and you hit a hazard, or you have 0 armor and you hit a hazard. It's the same thing. So it's one reason to keep an eye on your armor and wheels, kind of like as you're driving. Toxic. Applies 2 blight to attackers when hit per toxic token, lasts until end of combat. So when anybody hits 10 stress in this game, they have a base 20% chance, I believe it is, to go resolute, which is they will heal up, and they will, it's the same as it's similar to the first game, same as the first game. You will ups the relationships, etc., etc. The one exception to this, which would be the Flagellant, similar to the first game, is he goes toxic no matter what. So it's 100% toxic no matter what quirks he has, etc., etc. So what this means is he's now toxic on hit, and he's the only person that can get this. He can apply 2 blight to attackers when hit per toxic token. This can stack up to 3, except for there's one particular path. But in general, that's what this is. So he gains this Thorn ability of when he gets hit, he can't apply to blight to them. It can be resisted. You can imagine why this is very good during like boss fights, during really, really long fights, because he's able to apply blight just by sort of existing, and he does have a taunt down the road, so that makes it even better also. And to end it with this worship token, Exulting Unspeakable Cosmic Forces. So what this is essentially how it'll work is the in cultist fights, the little goons. So it's the baby in the altar. In some of the later acts in the later cultist fights, what they will do is they will get worship tokens. When they get 2 worship tokens, they get to worship the mini boss or the bigger. I guess mini boss is the best way to put it. When you're fighting a mini boss in the cultist, and they will worship that at 2 worship tokens. That mini boss will get to use a super ability, essentially called Exaltation. It's changed on every, depending on what boss it is, or what mini boss it is what worship actually does. But that's what this is. Essentially, you have to either kill the little goons before they're able to worship, or there is an item down the road that allow you to get rid of the worship tokens. So you only see this in later cultist fights, kind of in the acts. But it's something to keep an eye on. 1 worship token does nothing. 2 will allow little goons to heal the mini bosses, and then the mini bosses will be able to do kind of a big move. So those are all 45 tokens in this game. Everything what they do. If you guys have any questions, or if I didn't explain something correctly, or if I explained something a little bit confusing, please let me know. Obviously, I'm a smaller YouTuber, so I'm able to respond to all the comments, or you can come by my Twitch stream and you can say, hey, thank you for the video. I stream every day. If you guys would like to subscribe, I would appreciate it, because I'm continue to add kind of new players guides in this game, and just sort of like content in general. I have fun clips from the stream. I have fun fights from the stream. I got plenty of stuff on YouTube, and I'm going to continue to add to it, because I like being able to share the information that I get for this game, because it makes me feel like I haven't wasted 1,600 plus hours. But either way, I appreciate you watching my video, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day.